Today, I will be talking domestic abuse recovery and support with my fabulous friend and colleague, Bethany Simkin. Bethany is also a trauma-informed domestic abuse specialist and founder of the Rose Tree Project. She works full-time in the charity sector and devotes every other moment to figuring out how to get information and resources to women who have experienced domestic abuse. She's always on the phone and almost always has a cup of tea in her hand. Welcome to The Secrets in the Powder Room, where we share stories and open up conversations about all the secrets women are forced to keep out of fear and shame. I'm Louise Bryant, professional certified coach, intuitive eating counsellor, and trauma-informed domestic abuse specialist and survivor. I'm here to support you on your healing journey and help you feel like you're not alone. This is not to be a replacement of your own professional, medical, and/or legal advice. This podcast contains adult language and content. Listener discretion is advised. Okay. Hi, Bethany. How are you?
Hi, Louise. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you. It's so excited for you to be here, and it's like great having you on the show. Thank you so much. I know that you've got lots of juicy stuff to tell our listeners, and yeah, I'm just grateful to be introducing you to everybody because you're a massive part of this podcast and this journey with me. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm grinning from ear to ear. I'm going to have to try and talk through my smiles.
Awesome. No, talk through your smiles. It's great. It's great. It's great. Okay, Bethany. So, what is the Rose Tree Project?
Okay, so thank you for letting me talk about the Rose Tree Project on your podcast. It is my favourite topic to discuss. The Rose Tree Project is for women who have experienced abusive behaviour in their relationship. It's for women predominantly who have already left the relationship and have been kind of left with the impact of the abuse that they've experienced. And the fundamental idea of the project was to bring women together. There are so many women that have experienced abusive behavior in relationship, and there's so much stigma around it that it can be really hard to know who your allies are, to get support, to feel heard and feel understood. But also there's so many women that have gone through recovering from abusive relationships and have got a wealth of experience. And it just kind of makes sense to bring those people together so that they can feel heard, support one another. So we bring the community of women together and we try to pass on information and language so that women can make sense of their experience. And we do courses and drop-in sessions and skills workshops. And there's all of these things to support women for the various impacts that domestic abuse and experienced abusive behaviour in relationships might have had on them.
It's similar to how and why I started doing what I do. There are so many charities out there, Refuge, Solace, that help women get out of the abusive relationship. But then the gap is where you've left the relationship and it's assumed that you should just be okay. And it's so important, I think, that these kind of safe places are available for women to be able to do the work and build themselves back up after abuse.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's like, as you say, you come out of the abusive relationship and that's such a huge step. And it's like, oh my God, wow, that is a really hard bit to do. You've gone through the experience, that was hard. You've come out of it, that was hard. And then what isn't really spoken about is the fact that actually you've just experienced something horrific. Your view on the world could have significantly changed the way that you feel about yourself, your reflections on the relationship. Like, lots of women come out of it and don't understand how on earth it happened. That can be really stressful because it's like, well, how did I end up in that situation? And like, I loved him, maybe they still feel in love with them, and that's confusing. And there's all of these feelings where there's just no space to be like, right, this is how I feel. Is this okay? What is happening? Why is this going to happen to me again? Am I destined to be always single because I can't get into another relationship? Or trying to seek comfort from somebody else and not be able to self-protect? Like, there's all of these elements, not even including the like diminished self-worth and self-confidence. Like, there are so many elements that women are kind of left just to handle on their own, and I just think that's really unfair. And like, it doesn't have to be like that. There is information, there is language around it, there are courses, there are other women that have had similar experiences. So to try and bring that all together and be like, right, let's help you make sense of this, let's help you properly move forward, and let's give you control back of your own life. Like, it's not your fault that you went through this.
Absolutely. And it's all of them responses that we have now. So it's once you've kind of been through the domestic abusive relationship or other, abusive relationships or trauma, you're left with these heightened senses, these,
Oh yeah.
kind of like you're over reactive to certain things, and then you're bringing that into your new relationship, and that
Yeah.
can then affect that. You kind of like, you have stuff, and it's okay that we have these hypersensitive reactions to things, because we've had to protect ourselves for so long, but it's time to talk about that and make the conversation, normalize them kind of things that are happening, all the different, instead of just going, oh, she's depressed, go to the doctors, she's depressed, she's been in an abusive relationship,
Yeah.
there's some antidepressants, off you go, after your 10-minute appointment with your doctor, if you're lucky to get one.
100%. Something that people always used to say to me was like, you've just got when you're going into a new relationship, you've just got to trust them. It's like, well, how can you say that to me? Because I did that before and look where I ended up. And like, and I could never, nobody could explain to me why I should trust and how to protect myself. So like, it just didn't make any sense to me at all. So I just felt like, well, I've experienced the worst, so I'm going to expect that moving forward unless you prove otherwise. And to me, that was like a black and white. This makes sense to me. But actually now I've got more language around it. I understood that I was in fight or flight. I now recognize red flags, so I'm able to put boundaries in. I'm able to do all of these things to allow me to be able to trust in a relationship. And there just wasn't, I was asking that question and nobody had any answers. And for a lot of women, it can take a long time to even get to the point where you're asking those questions. So for us, so bring it back to the Registry Project, for us to kind of bring that information and present it to women so that they don't have to go through that struggle is really, really important. Like, it's really life impacting.
Absolutely. And then when you learn about the different red flags, and the
Yeah.
biggest one for me, the nice guy, the love bombing, when you kind of meet somebody and they're doing all these things and they say, just trust somebody, but then he's giving
Yeah.
you every reason to trust him, but he's
Yeah.
overdoing it. And it's so important to be able to recognize that as a thing too. And going back to what you said before, if you've been through an abusive relationship where someone's maybe hit you or really been bad, and then you get into a new relationship, but they're still abusing you, but it's not as bad as the last one. So you kind of
Yes.
tolerate it. And it's just learning that, no, that's not okay. There is decent people out there. You don't need to put up with it. As soon as you see any kind of inkling of a red flag, you kind of like get out of the door before it's too late, if you can.
Yeah.
And I know like sometimes these things can happen so quickly. And, it's important to understand that as well, I think.
Yeah. And just to say, I'm not laughing there because it's funny, but it is that thing, isn't it? Of like, oh, well, but I'm allowed to wear what I want. I'm just not allowed to go out. But it's not as bad. Like, it is like when you don't know how to if you don't know that you're allowed to look after yourself and that you're allowed to set boundaries, let alone know how to put them in place. Like, these are really real issues that you come up against. And it's like, oh yeah, but it's got a twinkle in its eye and it gives me butterflies. It's like, yeah, no, that's not enough to make a secure, safe, loving relationship, actually.
It's so common as well, isn't it? Hearing people say that I keep choosing this type of guy, or they've had similar dynamics in the family, like an abusive father or an abusive mother, and then they go on to have abusive relationships. But it's not too late. It's never too late. You can do a course like what we do, or you can work with a coach or a therapist or a domestic abuse specialist, because I think that having someone that really understands domestic abuse is really important, and a need to understand the impact and how you were affected by it and make the changes and really turn it around, because it is possible. There is hope.
It is. It really is. And it used to really annoy me. I was like, oh, how much work do I have to put in just to like live a normal life? But actually, I would much rather now that I've got access to information and support and an amazing community of women, which I'm so grateful for. Obviously, you are included in that, Louise. But to be able to have access to the tools so that you can know that you're making good choices for yourself, that you're able to partake in relationships that are healthy and be able to feel safe and secure in them, if that's what you want, or if you'd rather be on your own, to feel safe and secure in that decision. Like, just to have access to feeling comfortable and to making choices that best suit you, that's huge. And I would do anything like to get to that. So even if it is a bit of work, it's incredible. The payoff is immeasurable, in my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree. So what else do you offer community-wise within the Rose Tree Project?
For a lot of us, we're used to putting other people's needs first. And so we have a WhatsApp group that's purely dedicated to just reminding each other to take, even if it's just 5 minutes for ourselves. It was meant to be an exercise group. Some of us still use it as a prompt to exercise. So say, right, I'm going to go for a run at 9 o'clock. If anyone wants to join me, you can do. And it's not joining in person. It's just knowing that somebody else is doing something at the same time, so you don't feel that you're on your own. And it's that prompt to remind each of us that we could also move at that time. And it's also a prompt to take 5 minutes. If you're not up for going for a run, or that's not something that's interesting to you, because it's not for everyone, it might be a reminder to go and like take 5 breaths, or listen to a song, or have a dance, or do some knitting, just something that's prioritizing the individual woman, because I think that's really important.
Yes, and I'm part of that WhatsApp group too, and I find it really, really supportive. Like, I do have lots of WhatsApp groups for women that do my courses, but I find that one it's because it's kind of the follow-on from the other courses, and people still want to be involved, that it's just really lovely and really supportive. So what other things does the Rose Tree Project offer?
So we have monthly drop-in sessions. Now, these are open to any woman, any self-identifying woman who feels that they've been impacted by an abusive relationship. Every session is kind of different to the last. We try and do a check-in each time. So it gives each woman who attends, a chance to check in with how they're feeling, check in with what's going on for them, and to say it out loud to the rest of the group. Sometimes that might be the extent of their engagement in that session, and that's absolutely fine. Having those check-in points of being like, this is going well, this isn't going so well, this is bothering me, is, for some women, that'll be the only chance they get to really reflect on how they're doing. So that's a crucial part. And then we'll look at what women are facing and see if we need to have a group discussion about it, or they might ask for feedback. And it could be something related to their abusive relationship, or it could be just to do with anything in their life that's going on that they just want to raise and discuss with a community of women that understand the background that they've got. So if they're going into a job interview, it might be their first job since their abusive relationship. So there's these like self-doubts that are creeping in more than had she not been through an abusive relationship. So just kind of having a space to soundboard, have cheerleaders, get advice, and just be amongst women that absolutely get it. We also sometimes will talk about different elements of the impact of abusive relationships. But the main thing is that it's just a space for women to drop into. There's no like sign up for X amount of weeks. They're on one evening a month and one lunchtime a month for women to just drop in, take what they need from it, whether it's just being heard, being seen. We do some breathing at the beginning and at the end. So if it's a moment's meditation, or to get advice on a particular issue, we're just kind of there to support.
Yeah, and I just want to add, these are online as well, aren't they? They're
Yes.
not dropping in person. So anyone from, anywhere can kind of join it. Say anyone, but, obviously they have to be invited
absolutely.
by us. But yeah.
So, and one thing that we do say is that you have to join, you do have to join our mailing list. And that's just so that we can verify who you are, because we do need to keep these spaces as safe as possible.
Yeah.
But any self-identified woman is welcome.
Yeah, and cameras on as well, just so that we can make sure everybody's
Yes.
in a safe place. And we also run a 12-week programme that is designed for women who've been through domestic abuse to gain ownership of their lives. So Bethany, what inspired you to start the Rose Tree Project?
So this has been my dream since I was a really young girl. I've always been kind of amazed at how much women have to put up with. I didn't know I was a feminist until I was a teenager. But from a child, I just felt very aware that women went through so much and just were getting on with it. And I found this really inspiring and amazing, and eventually found it very unfair. There is such a huge amount of women that experience abusive behavior who would then go on to have like low self-worth. And this was something that I witnessed a lot as a child, like within my family, within friendship groups. There were women that swore off relationships entirely because of an abusive experience. And whilst I don't think that being in a relationship is the be all and end all, to not be open to being in a loving, committed relationship because of what somebody else had done to you, I just found that really sad and really unfair. And I just went on this kind of like learning mission to see what's out there for women that have experienced domestic abuse. And it seemed like there was a lot for women that were in immediate crisis, but actually there were loads of women that had gone through an abusive relationship that hadn't even realized that they'd been through one. So were living with the impact of it, but didn't have the right terminology or the understanding that actually what they needed was domestic abuse recovery. Like, it's such a huge amount of women that fall into that category. I was one of them. So as I was on this fact finding mission, I realized that my relationship had been really abusive, and that explained how my outlook on the world, I felt really unsafe going into relationships. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't understand the way that women were treated in society. I felt like I had this really different view of the world to my peers. And I realized on this mission that that was because I'd been in an abusive relationship. I had no idea that that was the case. So that kind of really cemented for me that there was a need to get information out to women about what is actually an abusive relationship, how that can impact us as women, and not just to be like, oh, by the way, you've been through something awful, this is going to affect you, but to help give the language to those feelings and to those experiences so that they can move forward from it. So what we called the drop in, move forward, and this is why. So I've now been able for myself to be able to work on healing from my experience and how to set boundaries in relationships and how to protect myself, which has been a game changer, which I wouldn't have known to do before. And we really want to focus on women who have managed to leave. So a lot of the support out there at the moment is rightly for crisis support, for supporting women to be able to safely leave their abusive partner and to be able to get their affairs in order. Like, there's so much logistics and paperwork, especially if you've lived together or have children together. Like, that's an incredibly stressful time. So that's where a lot of the resources go to. But my focus is on women that are a little bit further down the line that just really want to address the trauma that they've been through, the impact on their self-worth, on their mental health, and on their outlook on life, and to bring them together so that they can truly, like, take back control and understand their experience and move forward from it.
There's such a lack of help out there and understanding for women once they've left an abusive relationship. People assume that once you're out of the relationship and you're safe, that you should be fine, and don't understand the effects that abuse leaves you with, like the trauma, the low self-esteem, and if you've got contacts because you have children together or finances that need sorting. This is hard enough for anyone, but, you know, put domestic abuse into the mix and it comes with this whole other layer of shit. And some people are fine. Some people have the abusive relationship, come out, and they're okay. And some people have stuff that's not really seen as really abusive, but it affects them terribly. And everyone's story, everyone's journey is completely different, and everyone's trauma is valid. And I think that that's a really important thing to, because I've had lots of women that have come through feel like they're not worthy of doing our courses. They're not worthy of having this because they haven't been in an abusive relationship. But it's only when they start going through the actual course they go, wow, I actually, there was an aha moment there, and I know I totally deserve my place here. And I sort of said to them, you should be on this course. They're like, oh no, you never hit me, so I don't deserve, that's not, there's women on the course that have had far worse than me. But abuse is abuse is abuse.
It is. And this is the thing. It's like, if you've been in a relationship where somebody has made you feel like you're not worthy, or if you've been in a relationship with someone who doesn't see you as equal, that's a really damaging experience on its own. Like, that's really harmful. At the very least, it's rude, mean, and confusing. And then when you're carrying even that forward with you, that's a lot. So it's really sad when women say that they feel that it's not as bad as others, but I know I've been guilty of that as well. But somebody said to me, you're going through something that's abnormal, and that is going to impact you. And on the note with like the CBT and the therapy, I'm a big backer of CBT and therapies, but when you've had a reaction to an abnormal situation, you've got to address the fact that you've been through an abnormal situation, and you've got to be able to understand that and work through that, rather than, like you said, it's not something that's wrong with you. It's that you've experienced something abnormal. You've had a normal reaction, but now how do you heal and move forward from that? And it's really important that that's the starting point.
Yeah, I think with the CBT and the counselling, obviously they can help just with everybody. They're all great tools to have, fantastic tools when you're going through stuff in life, when, job change, stuff with your children, stuff with your family dynamics and stuff like that. There's always a space for it. And I do think there's a space for it in domestic abuse. But I also think that as a woman or a person that's been through domestic abuse, they need a little bit more specialist kind of
Definitely.
work, you know, to really understand the way that our body is responding, our fight or flight. Everything that we're doing is a natural response, and it's heightened when you're in a, or you've been in an abusive relationship. And you know, and it's to move forward, isn't it? So that it's not like continuing to affect your new relationships, or
Yeah.
continue to affect how you respond to your children. And
Yeah. Or how
you
you
know,
view yourself as a person, how you view the world around you.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
huge.
And I think when someone's broken you down that much, the self-love the love that you have for yourself is really broken down. And I always say that you only let people treat you a little bit better than you treat yourself. And if someone's
Right.
been saying all this stuff to you, you know, it becomes like a belief system. It can change how you feel about yourself. If someone's
Yeah.
constantly putting you down, then you start to doubt yourself. And you know, we all have a self-dialogue that puts us down at times. You know, everyone has that. But if you've had someone else, you know, saying that stuff to you as well, or worse stuff to you, you know, it can be really hard to unlearn that. And you know,
Mhm.
it's about starting from within you. I think starting from yourself and how you talk to yourself, and how that then, you know, that being kind to yourself, and starting with your self-care, and you know, your positive self-talk, so that you then start thinking, I treat myself far better than that. I'm not going to let anyone treat me terrible again.
That's a good start. Do you know, you just reminded me. I saw on I watched, oh, what was it? I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And Carol Vorderman said something that I really liked. I thought this was quite helpful. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'll share it just in case. So Carol Vorderman said, like, when you go into a relationship, you've got like a circle around you. So she drew a circle around her in the gravel or wherever it is she's got in the jungle, mud probably. Draw a circle around it, right? So you've got your circle of what's acceptable behavior. And then when you're with an abusive partner, they'll do something that's outside of your circle of acceptable behavior. Gone home, they've tried to make it up to you, probably a bit of love bombing, but a bit of gaslighting, whatever. I'm so sorry, love you. Here's some flowers. It won't happen again. And then you stay together. So then your circle of acceptable behavior has grown. So actually more things are now deemed acceptable. And every time they do something and then try to manipulate you to stay with them, that circle grows and grows and grows. So then even when you get out of that relationship, it's really unclear to you where your boundaries are, because your circle has been pushed out so gradually that it's really hard to remember what actually is accepted and what isn't. And women tend to go, well, not even just women, people tend to go, sorry, that made it sound like I don't think that women are people. I just didn't want to gender this bit. When you're in an abusive relationship, when you come out of it, your circle can either go so small that you're just like, right, I'm just not going to let anyone in at all. No, there is no acceptable behavior. I don't want you anywhere near me. Or it's still so wide that anyone can come in and just do anything, because you've got no kind of boundary anymore as to what is acceptable and what isn't. I found that quite an interesting analogy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think
To
that's,
hear it better.
I love an analogy. An analogy. An analogy. Brilliant. No, that's a great way to explain it. Love a bit of Carol Vorderman.
Yeah, I might have to rewatch it so I can regurgitate it in a much more concise way, but hopefully that came across. What I will say is that we've had a very quick conversation about a huge topic, and it might be that you feel that you've been subject to abusive relationship, but actually you don't feel that your experience has been heard or displayed within mine and Louise's little chat. That's just because it's huge, and there are so many different sort of variations of what abuse can feel and look like. And I think that's the main thing that we're trying to get across, is that no matter what your experience is, there is support for you. You don't deserve to have gone through that, and you definitely don't deserve to have to carry that through the rest of your life. And if there's one thing that I would want somebody to take away from this, is just that it's not your fault. Even if you did things that you don't agree with, or that you felt were morally questionable or wrong, or that were outside of what your normal values would be, it still isn't your fault that you went through that. And actually you do deserve to be able to understand and make sense of your experience, and to be able to either to somehow move forward from that, whatever that looks like for you. And that would be the key thing. And I would love to hear from anybody who wants support or wants to join our really special community. And once you're in, you can come in, take what you need and leave, or you can come in and stay and just be with us always. But yeah, it's really about having ownership of your own life and being able to live the life that you have chosen, not the life that you've been left with due to someone else's shitty behavior.
And we say as well, because it's like the Rose Tree Project, we say that it's more roses are growing on our tree every single time we do more courses. It's constantly growing, and it's just wonderful to have this tree full of wonderful women, wonderful roses, and we just want to see it grow and grow and grow, don't we?
We do. That's very cute.
I know. So if anyone wanted to find out a bit more about the Rose Tree Project and how to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
So you can go to our website, which is www.rosetreeproject.co.uk. I have an Instagram page, which I look at every day. Whether I add to it or not is a completely different story, but I'm there. And it's rosetree_project.
So thank you so much, Bethany, for coming on today. It's been wonderful having you. And I know we're going to have lots more of these conversations and chats. There's going to be all the different traits of abusive relationships. There's going to be all the red flags and hopefully all the healthy signs as well. How children are affected, finances, lots and lots and lots of topics. So I would love to have you come back on the show if you would come and talk to me again.
I think you would struggle to stop me.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun having you here, and
thank you.
I look forward to more.
Yay, heart emoji. Yay.
Thank you for joining Bethany and I today in this episode of The Secrets in the Powder Room. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review, as this helps others to find the podcast. And check out the show notes for any links for the Rose Tree Project and myself.